Are you itching to leave the rat race so that you can join a different rat race? Then boy oh boy do I have the career path for you. Let me just yap to you about something for a second, alright? This video is also going to be kind of a rant, kind of a song, because I like doing these. The dream for most young people in the Lord's year of 2025 is to become an influencer. And rightfully so, you know what I mean? Why on earth would you want to do like a service job when you can supposedly make like 800K just posting TikToks? It's not confusing really, or even weird that a lot of young people would want to be an influencer. Honestly, for a lot of people, I'm sure it probably feels even like their only hope in this kind of a job market, you know? You watched your parents struggle to buy bread for your whole childhood, but now you're watching like all your favorite streamers get paid like millions of dollars for what appears to just be going outside. And I was recently watching this episode of the Step by Step podcast by Shelby Church, and she was actually talking about the phenomenon of people doing the opposite, like going from full-time influencing back to full-time 9 to 5. And the reasoning kind of surrounding why, with most people seeming to cite like a lack of fulfillment and also like loneliness, I think, from some people missing working in an environment and working like with other people more. I think the biggest one though is that a lot of people generally cite like a lack of stability in terms of like income. So for some people who have kind of like achieved that, they've still decided to opt to go back to like a full-time 9 to 5 job, or at least like get involved in industries that maybe have a bit more stability in them, which is all kind of like a really interesting conversation to me, because also recently on TikTok, this dude called hubs.life has decided to do the opposite. So I guess like the normal thing that people tend to do. hubs.life was kind of an influencer who was known for romanticizing the 9 to 5 life. And romanticizing is a very interesting word to use right here, because he didn't make it look good or romantic. His videos are actually like incredibly depressing. For the most part, he was just living a normal life that has for so long been called sad and awful and depressing. So he used his platform to show people that, hey, this life really is sad, awful, and depressing. In spite of the obvious really sad and kind of depressing tone of his videos, people still kind of resonated with it. I think a lot of people really just liked seeing maybe a more normal life represented online, you know what I mean? I spoke about this in one of my older videos talking about like de-influencing and how like it's one of my favorite brands of content, because so much about influencing is kind of centered on like making things look fantastic and romantic and amazing like all of the time. So like when people make content that does show off like some semblance of normalcy, I actually with it heavy. And I think that's why a lot of people were drawn to his content, not because it was necessarily happy, but because it just was, I guess, honest, real, authentic to what a lot of us are living. And you know, if you squint and step back a little, it's actually kind of soothing. Like, it really is not that dramatic. It is not that bad. Because realistically speaking, it's like if you see the economy that we're living in right now, it's actually kind of a huge dub to have a job. Secure employment? Say less. And from what I could find from my research, it seems like he was a senior benefits analyst at a Fortune 500 company. And a Fortune 500 company are companies like Walmart, Apple, Amazon, companies that, like, for all intents and purposes are relatively secure, so you don't usually have to worry about them randomly folding and you having no job tomorrow. You have a higher level of job security than most people have. And from what I can see as well, it seems like the salary for this kind of work can be anywhere between like 85 up to like 110K. So from what we could see, yes, he did have a 9 to 5, but it seems like he had one of the better ones that a person could have. I don't see why he was so hell-bent on making us think his life sucked. Like, these jobs seem kind of nice to me. So despite the tone and color grading of his videos, things weren't so bad. So you might be asking yourself, what could this dude have possibly done to land himself in hot water? Well, he bamboozled us. He bamboozled the whole goddamn audience. Because while everybody was coming to him to feel comfort in, you know, normalcy, he pulled a fucking 180 on all of us and quit his job to pursue influencing full time. The BAM was fully boozled, and he is now a full-time influencer. Congrats. Essentially, the content that made him famous was content normalizing the 9 to 5, you know? And then as soon as that content became popular enough for him to be able to make a full-time living influencing, he abandoned it. He said, y'all, the normal life, the office, Fortune, and 500. And the response to him is honestly incredibly expected, right? Like, we've seen this happen before. I think with any kind of content that centers your life, like the type of lifestyle you live, kind of like day in the life of a software engineer type of content, you know, if that changes, your audience is gonna shift, because if people came to you for that one specific thing and then that one specific thing is gone, they're gonna feel a little bit betrayed. They're gonna be like, I came here for cookies and now you're trying to serve me cake. Now, a lot of people felt super lied to, but I really didn't, because like I said, if you actually watch his 9 to 5 content, he wasn't making it look that good. He didn't look that happy. If anything, I think he de-romanticized it. I think he made it look way worse than it is. However, despite the fact that he did quit the 9 to 5, the actual tone of his content hasn't shifted at all. I think bro's just got depression. It feels like he has an incredible talent for making anything look a little bit sad and dreary. He's still slowly lowering his laptop into his bag. He's just now going to a WeWork, which, can I just say, WeWorks is one of my favorite examples of watching white men fail upward. You should all look into WeWork. It's honestly incredibly interesting to me because it's kind of like lifestyle without the life. Where's bro's family and bro's friends? Where's bro's hobbies? Because another interesting angle to his content, which is why I kind of feel like he wasn't really romanticizing the 9 to 5 too much, is that I feel like it kind of made it look like when people have a job, their whole life is job. Wake up, work, come home. Like, please, man. I find the content interesting on how angry people are at him now that he's switched up the content kind of interesting, because I feel like if I could just, you know, blame the audience here for a second, I think that there was a lot of heavy projection. It's really easy to criticize influencers for the decisions they make, but sometimes the audience is also a little bit a part of the problem. And I feel like with hubs.life, an interesting perspective that I don't know if I've heard other people explicitly say is I think his audience were just real heavy projecting onto him, you know? Because I think if you took his content at face value, I don't think you would really see someone who was celebrating a 9 to 5 life. And like I said as well, the actual tone of his videos hasn't changed really at all. So the fact that so many people felt so betrayed by him taking the opportunity of doing full-time influencing, I think the audience has some self-reflection maybe to do, to ask themselves, like, was I giving this content and this man's life meaning that just wasn't there? Because if you actually look at it, you're kind of still getting the same brand of content you subscribed for. A dude living his life. He's just not working a 9 to 5 anymore. His wife still is though, so maybe she needs to start posting. But I'm not gonna act like it's all the audience, right? Because hubs.life handled this transition a little bit poorly, maybe? I also kind of wonder why he didn't fake it. Like, I guess it's kind of nice he wanted to be like honest with his audience, but you know, this stuff is real easy to fake. How would we, the audience, know that you no longer work at the business factory if you don't tell us? But to be honest, I think what people really didn't like was more so his response to people who felt a little bit betrayed by him quitting the 9 to 5 life, because he has turned off the comments on his TikToks, and I guess some people could see that as protecting his peace. You know, he's a grown-ass man, he can do whatever he wants. But I guess a lot of people see it as maybe not being able to take criticism. But I think though the biggest thing that started getting under people's skin was the lives.
But you gotta send a galaxy, bro. I gotta get a galaxy, guys. Send me something, man. It's how I'm making a living. I don't know if I saw a galaxy come through, man. I can't answer any of these. You gotta send me a galaxy, bro. Sam, thank you for the first gift. Roses on deck. But I don't know. I think roses are like not a galaxy.
Now, I will admit I have only seen re-uploads. I did not catch this live because unlike him, I am employed. And they started memeing on him hard because like he was apparently on lives like begging people for galaxies, which are I think roughly $5. From what I could see watching the re-uploads, it appears that he wouldn't answer questions for people or really talk to his audience at all unless they donated, which is kind of antithetical to how live streaming works, you know? You're supposed to live stream entertaining content to incentivize people to donate. But I do think that despite the fact that yes, it might be a little parasocial for his audience to give this much. I do think it's valid to be like, hey man, like we really liked watching you for the 9 to 5 content, and the fact that it switched up is a little bit disappointing. I think that's a totally valid feeling. As I said earlier in the video, de-influencing is one of my favorite brands of content, which is kind of what I would put his content in terms of like genre. It's the classic you're no longer relatable thing, which is a totally understandable phenomenon that happens. But that being said, for him to kind of like spin it around on his audience and be like, hey, you have to pay me to talk to me now, I get why people were rubbed the wrong way by that. People who are known for like begging for donations and galaxies on TikTok Live, much like Jason Nash, are usually assumed to be having like a rough financial go at it because these donations are not that much money. So fingers crossed he didn't leave the previous company on bad terms. But also we have to remember that we don't know the actual inner workings of people's lives, right? Like maybe this is a positive thing for him. He gets to stay home more and hang out with his new child and wife and all that. Maybe he was deeply depressed at his previous job, hence the tone of those videos. And if he is making like a ton more money, then he made the right choice, right? Who would reasonably give up that opportunity? I just find the whole topic of it kind of interesting when people talk about quitting their full-time job for influencing, or the reverse of quitting influencing for a full-time job, because I think that for some reason we discuss influencing and working almost like two separate things. Like we don't use that word synonymously for some reason. We seem to think it's like either you work or you're an influencer, you know? The big difference is really just your compensation for your time, not necessarily whether or not you're working. You're working. We're all focused on doing a job versus influencing, rather than just focusing on doing the absolute best that you can to make sure that the work in your life brings you fulfillment. And the way that that'll manifest for people is going to be so different, you know? Like if your lifestyle needs you to be at home more often, if you make significantly more money, if it takes up lots of your time, then you absolutely should quit your day job and do it full time, you know? Fulfilling work can come from a 9 to 5. It can come from a service-based job with like crazier hours. One of the most fulfilled people I know who loves their line of work works as an EMT. There's a lot of people, as we've seen, who make tons of money influencing and for whatever reason still decide to keep their 9 to 5. They seem to enjoy working with people. This is gonna sound crazy, but some people also don't necessarily care about finding fulfillment from their work. You wanna know like something crazy about me? There's a part of my brain, despite the fact that I do enjoy doing creative work, that loves repetitive, meaningless work. One of my first jobs I ever had was like as a data entry clerk, and all I did was copy and paste information from one Excel sheet into another. And despite the fact that I learned nothing, I did nothing. The tasks took me maybe a total of 45 minutes. There is something deeply satisfying when I can turn my brain off like that and just click clack mindlessly while music plays in my ears. Sometimes tasks like that completely allow you to shut off, they scratch an itch. If anybody relates to that, please tell me. Drop my diagnosis in the comments. All that to say, that was a really long, rambly way to say that what is meaningful work, what is fulfilling work is going to look different from person to person. Not everyone even seeks to find fulfillment from the work. Some people want it as money means to an end. Like there's just so many. The goal is to find work that lets your life move in the direction that you're trying to move and shake. And that's on, I'm actually running for the next US presidential election. So what was the point of this video and what is the wrap up? As a matter of fact, do quit your day job so that you can spend more of your free time watching me. And that, my friends, is the video. Me and my audience of plushy CEOs are grateful that you watched. Banana is here, but I forgot to move him. Now, if you have seen this guy, Hubs Life, on your TikTok and have feelings about it, I would love to know. I'm also curious about if any of you work a job that you actually feel happy and deeply fulfilled in. I love hearing people's stories like that. I don't know. I'm a sucker for like an unglamorous but so beautiful success story. You know what I mean? But as usual, if you've made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.